Welcome to the Flame Entertainment and Sports. Today I'm joined by Jerry, and our special guest today is John McClain. You can follow him on Twitter. I'm McClain_on_NFL. He covers the NFL for the Houston Chronicle, and he could be heard on Sports Radio 610 in Houston. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you very much for having me. It is a pleasure.
All right, go ahead, Jerry.
John, we wanted to ask you, we noticed that you had a really extensive career covering Houston sports. Describe how that has felt like.
Right now, it's a bad time to be a sports writer in Houston or a fan in Houston because everything's so negative. The Rockets are awful. Texans are at an all-time low because Deshaun Watson wants to be traded and says he will never play here again. J.J. Watt asked for his release, got it, went to Arizona. The Rockets have lost their best pitcher, Framber Valdez, for the season. So it's negativity here 24/7. And just 2 seasons ago in 2019, all of our teams were good and competing for championships. But now and I've told people this, when it comes to football in Houston, the 2 lowest times I can remember were both I've covered because I've been doing it 45 years here, is number one, after the 1980 season when the owner, Bud Adams of the Oilers, fired Bum Phillips, the most popular coach in city history, after 3 consecutive playoff seasons.
Wow.
And they went into a terrible tailspin. Number 2, after the 1995 season, when we thought the Oilers were moving to Nashville, but their lease made them stay one more season. And they averaged about 12,000 fans a game. So when you're losing your franchise, it's like that was like being stuck with your ex-wife for a year before the divorce was final and you had to live together, or your ex-husband. And then now just the constant negativity about the Texans, who in 2019 won their 4th division title in 5 years, beat Buffalo in the playoffs, had a 24-0 lead. The Kansas City choked that. They've been straight down the toilet ever since.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy how quick things can change, right?
That's the truth. And sometimes it's not just going good from bad, it's bad to good. Like, look what happened to the Dolphins last year to go 10-6 under Brian Flores. Now everybody's fired up. The Browns have had 1 playoff season since 1999, and then the Browns rebounded, won a playoff game over their arch rival. I've been through a few of those renaissances as well, but right now we're on that emotional roller coaster in Houston, and that roller coaster is on the ground.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so I have a question here. So obviously, it really has to do with, like, obviously Deshaun Watson, like you said, he wants to get traded. So where do you believe the future of the Texans will go after trading Deshaun Watson?
Rob, first of all, they don't want to trade Watson. They love Watson. Houston fans have waited since Warren Moon was traded after the night because of this new thing called the salary cap. So they waited from 93 till 2017 when Watson was drafted to have a great quarterback. And now if they wait that long for the next one, I'll be on the other side of the grass. And so they don't want to trade him. Everybody loves Watson, but he has no faith in the organization, the leadership. And I'm not talking about the general manager, Nick Caserio, who came from New England, the coach, David Culley, who came from Baltimore. It's with owner Cal McNair and executive VP of football ops, Jack Easterby. And he doesn't think that they know what they're doing, and he wants out, and he's willing to hold out into the season, costing him millions and millions of dollars. So I've had a lot of people from a lot of cities, including I just got off a talk show with Chicago, trying to find a way that I could tell them their team had a chance to get Deshaun Watson. And I've told Carolina, Denver, Chicago, San Francisco, they're not going to trade him to one of those cities. They don't pick high enough to where they could get a franchise quarterback. They've got to have a franchise quarterback in return. And they will never be in a situation again where you have the teams with the second and third pick in the same division, both trying to get better. If Watson were in Miami, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would pick the Dolphins to dethrone the Bills in AFC East. A lot of people may pick Brian Flores and Deshaun Watson to go to the Super Bowl, if not in 2021 season, 2022. As far as the Jets, he would help them rebuild quicker. He would automatically be the second greatest quarterback in Jets history to Joe Namath. He would help them steal thunder from the Giants, and he would be a great centerpiece for new coach Robert Saleh to start his head coaching career. So to me, you get those two teams bidding against each other. And the trade would have to hurt. It would have to hurt that team where you and Jerry would go, oh my God, I can't believe they gave up that mess for Deshaun Watson, but Watson be there 10 or 15 years. What you sacrifice in draft picks in 2021 and 22, you're going to get them back in 23. Then you're going to have salary cap money to spend on free agents, and it wouldn't hurt the Dolphins defense. The key to the two teams, if you trade him to the Jets, you're guaranteed the second best quarterback prospect to Trevor Lawrence, probably Brigham Young's Zach Wilson. If you trade him to the Dolphins, you could get Tua Tagovailoa. But here's what I tell people about that. Nick Caserio, the new general manager, was in New England the last 20 years. Never had to worry about a quarterback the last year's draft. So Caserio, as a director of player personnel, Bill Belichick's right-hand man, he scouted those quarterbacks thoroughly. And if he thought Tua, coming off hip surgery at Alabama, was the franchise quarterback, you got to go after Tua. But if he didn't, you could take Tua in the trade, find a team that did think he was a franchise quarterback and try to flip him for a number one or more. Or if you didn't want Tua, just ask the Dolphins for something besides a quarterback. But they got to get a quarterback they can sell to the fan base, because this is the toughest sell of this team, any Houston team, since that last season the Oilers were here, and we knew they were moving, and nobody wanted to see them play.
Wow. It's interesting, like, that you brought up the Jets and Dolphins. Yeah, because like me and Jerry, a couple, like last week, we did an episode like giving our thoughts on like what teams we think would be interested. And I feel that, I don't know what you think, but I think the best case scenario for Houston would be to try to make a trade with the Jets. Because like you said, they'll be able to get the second best draft prospect in the draft if they get that number 2 pick. What do you think? Like, what do you think would be the best, like, I guess, like, ideal case scenario for Houston?
I think it would be the Jets, but for Watson, it would be the Dolphins because they're a better team. But the thing about the Dolphins, if you deal with Miami and Brian Flores builds on what he built this past season, any number ones you get after this year, when they get their number one back that they gave for Larry Tunsil and Kenny Stills, plus they get their number 2 back, then those would be low ones. It's like Detroit bragging that it got 2 ones for Matthew Stafford. Probably those are going to be low ones. Or if you did it with the Jets, you get their high 1 this year. I'd let them keep the Seattle 1. And then I'd say, give me your 1 and 2 this year. Give me your 2 ones next year. And I want Sam Darnold and I want Quinnen Williams. And yes, it's going to hurt, but you got $80 million. You can go get replacements, and you got a quarterback you don't have to worry about for more than a decade. And when you can solidify a position like that, think about Miami. Think about all the quarterbacks the Dolphins have tried to play to replace Dan Marino, and they haven't. That's something else. If they got Watson, he would be the closest quarterback they've ever had to Dan Marino. And over the next 10 years, they might be able to say he's the best since Marino, and he might actually help them win another Super Bowl.
That would be amazing.
Man, I fully agree. I think Deshaun Watson is one of the top five quarterbacks in this league.
He's a great guy too. Everybody, fans love him. He's tough, mentally and physically tough. He's exciting, never gives up on anything. His teammates love him. Media, we love covering the guy. He's a great kid. He's a pillar of the community. He devotes a lot of time, spends money on the community, but he just doesn't want to be in this community. And I tell fans who are and media people, say, well, he signed an extension for $156 million. He should be loyal. And I'll say, tell it to Kyle Van Noy. Tell it to Nick Martin. Texans have cut all these players who were under contract. You know, that's a two-way street. Watson wants to cut the Texans. What's good for one's good for the other. This thing about, okay, it's okay for teams to get rid of players they sign contracts with in good faith, but it's not okay for a player to want to cut a team. I understand now that today, that's the way you do business.
That's so true, and I think like it's true for the NFL, NBA, MLB. Like it's really like other leagues are like the players have, I think, more power than ever before.
Used to be knowledge was power. Now it's money's power. And I tell you what, the NFL does not want. You bring up the NBA and baseball. Baseball's been run by the union for decades. The NBA, a few control the many. A couple of powerful agents like Rich Paul. The NFL does not want that. They don't want players like Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson to dictate when they get out, when they're under contract, and where they go. And I tell people from other teams that tell me that, I said, that's easy for you to say. You're not in this predicament. The Texans don't owe the NFL anything. The NFL's not doing anything for the Texans. The Texans have to do what is best for them, what they think is best for them. And when Nick Caserio, if he sits on Watson all season, that serves no purpose. Why would you want to force a player to come back to get paid and he's miserable instead of start over with somebody who's enthusiastic, like, say, Zach Wilson or Tua Tagovailoa? And so that's why I think about April 1st, they need to start listening to some of these offers. I think by saying we're not trading him, I think that's good because the longer they do that, the more teams call.
Nah, that's so true. I agree. Especially, yeah, if they wait till draft day too, I think that'd be great too, like for Houston.
Put a lot of more interest in the draft. Draft the first day is April 29th. They've got to get it done by the 28th so the Texans can decide what they would want to do with those other draft choices.
Quick question. Do you think his trade value goes up if you wait till the draft, or do you think it goes down?
I think the longer you wait, when you have multiple teams interested in somebody, the more they're willing to pay. You just got to know when to like hold them and fold them. And he's not going anywhere. Not like he's got an issue or it's money. It's just he wants a different zip code. And he spends a lot of time in Miami in the off season. So somebody said today on one of the shows I was doing, well, he has no trade clause. What if he wants to go to Miami? Well, that'd be great if they offered the best deal. But what if they try to trade him to the Jets and he says, no, the Jets are giving up too much. I don't want to be in rebuilding. I'm not going. Well, then you say, okay, then sit out and lose more than $20 million.
Wow.
Okay, so it's not like the Texans don't have any leverage in this at all.
Texans have all the leverage. He's under contract through 2025. He can retire, but he's not going to sit out an entire season. He's got to come in for 4 games so he can get credit for the contract this season. You got to play 6 to get credit as far as vested veteran and be a free agent, which he'll never be because his contract will never expire. But they could do that. But what's the point of forcing a guy to come back who doesn't want to be here and is miserable? I wouldn't want somebody on my business that felt that way. I'd make every effort to accommodate them, and especially when you have so many teams interested. But to me, it's Jets, Dolphins, or bust.
Wow. So what would you say is there like any sleeper team that you've heard like anything about them being interested in Watson, like a team that doesn't really get talked about?
There could be, but the fact is they don't have a chance because they don't have a quarterback for them. I'm writing a column for Sunday. Go ahead and send him to Arizona for Kyler Murray, and hope Kyler Murray doesn't go to the Oakland A's or retire. And because the Cardinals would have to throw in something else because Watson is farther advanced than Murray. Plus, Murray's got one more year, and he'll be getting a big contract more than Watson. And I thought when I originally came up with that idea to write it, it's kind of tongue in cheek. The more I think about it, give me Kyler Murray over any of those guys.
Yeah. Well, that's actually I hadn't thought of Arizona, but I agree with you. Like Kyler looks amazing. Go ahead, Jerry. You have a question?
Not right now.
Let's see. So what would you like? What team? I know you talked about like Miami. Like for Watson, does any other team come to mind that you think would benefit him like as much as Miami, or not really?
Any team that needs a quarterback could use Deshaun Watson. You know, the Bears could use him, Carolina, San Francisco, Denver. Anybody that needs a quarterback should be calling about Watson to at least inquire. But unless you've got a way to guarantee they got a franchise quarterback to sell to the fan base here, you're not going to get a serious proposal.
Got you.
Yeah.
All right. So I have another question. So let's see. So what? Okay. I have one about J.J. Watt actually. So what do you think like his departure of Houston, like how much is that gonna like negatively affect like the team in general and especially like the locker room?
Well, Watt was their best defensive player, but their defense was 30th overall and terrible, and it's got to be rebuilt. So we knew he was gone before the season was over because he had 1 year left on his contract at 17.5 million, and they were 10 million over the cap. So by releasing him, they cleared up 10 and have an extra 7.5. Now they've compiled more since. And Watt had done so much for the franchise off the field. I've never known a player in my 45 years covering the NFL who did more off the field than Watt. And so he went to the McNair family and met with them and said, I'd like to have a chance to go where I want to go instead of trade me. So they agreed to do it because they might have gotten a conditional third round pick for him. He turns 32 in March and he can still play. He's not the force he was when he won 3 NFL Defensive Player of the Year awards. But going to Arizona and playing opposite Chandler Jones, since 2012, those two have the most sacks in the NFL. Jones missed all but one game last year with the torn pec, so he's going to be hungry. Watt's going to be hungry. So that's a pretty good pair of bookend defensive ends for an up-and-coming team that was 8-8 last year, 13th in defense, very exciting offense led by Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. So everybody here is happy for Watt. The Texans play at Arizona. That may be the only game Texans fans are interested in next season.
Wow. So I mean that was actually I hadn't really thought of the pairing of Chandler Jones and Watt, but that should be fun to watch. And I think Watt can make a big impact, especially for like the young guys there in Arizona, like for Kyler Murray and even for Kingsbury too. Like he's a young coach, so Watt might like make a bigger impact than what people are saying.
One reason Watt went there is it's a great city. I love Arizona in the Phoenix area, but also several of his former teammates, besides DeAndre Hopkins, and one of his former coaches here, Vance Joseph, is defensive coordinator. And they talked about how much fun they have playing under Cliff Kingsbury. Texans had no fun this year playing under Bill O'Brien. And then after he was fired, it wasn't Romeo Crennel's fault as interim coach. Just losing is not fun. And so everybody was devastated, and Watt was able to do something about it. So he's kind of gone to the desert to find the fountain of youth. And nobody questions his work ethic or his character. He'll be good in the locker room. He'll be great in the community. People will love him. And I think he can play another 3 or 4 years till he's 35 years old.
Wow. Yeah, I know a big thing with him obviously is the health. So I'm hoping that he stays more healthy in Arizona.
He was one of only 2 defensive linemen to play over 1,000 plays last year. Year before, he missed half the season with a torn pec, came back in the playoffs. Year before that, played 16 games, had 16 sacks, first team All Pros. So last time he had an injury other than that torn pec was 2017.
Got you. Go ahead, Jerry. Yeah.
No, I didn't have. I was thinking about saying something, but I wasn't exactly sure.
Got you. All right. John, I have a couple questions for you that are basically like this or that. So I'm gonna give you like 2 options, and then you just tell me like your choice. You got me? All right. So first one. So who was the better wide receiver for Houston? Andre Johnson or DeAndre Hopkins?
Andre Johnson, because he played longer. DeAndre, if he'd have stayed here, may have been as good as Andre. They were like 1 and 1A.
Got you. As you can see, I'm wearing a Hurricanes jacket here, so I'm a big Andre Johnson fan.
Everybody's a big Andre Johnson fan.
For sure. He's a legend. For sure. All right, the next one I have for you. So, okay, so if Houston does end up with that second pick and they make a deal with the Jets, would you prefer Zach Wilson or Justin Fields?
Zach Wilson, because Justin Fields is represented by David Mulligetta, who is Deshaun Watson's agent.
Wow. Yeah, that's big. I hadn't thought of that. That's big.
Now, let me say this about Mulligetta. He's one of the top agents in the country, and he's not orchestrating this. Watson wants out. He's doing what his client wants, trying to get him out of a city where he doesn't want to be anymore for that team. So maybe if they love Justin Fields, they say, hey, we're drafting you, and Fields might come down here and have a great time. You know, they wouldn't have to worry about a new contract for 3 or 4 years. So I don't know that would cause them to take Wilson over Fields. I know this, you better take the quarterback you like the best. So I'm going to say Zach Wilson.
Got you. All right. I thought of another player, he's not on the Texans, but what are your thoughts right now with all the other trade rumors going around with like Russell Wilson? Do you think there's any truth to that?
Well, there's a lot of rumors. His agent said he doesn't want to be traded, but if he did, here's 4 teams. Chicago was on there. Why in the world would he want to go to Chicago? Especially since the coach and GM could be fired after this season. Something I think is Jerry Jones ought to call Pete Carroll and John Schneider and say, okay, how about I sign Dak Prescott to a contract you guys like, and then we'll swap Dak to you for Russell Wilson, and you swap those quarterbacks.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Dak would be with a team that was 12-4 and is a Super Bowl contender every year. Russell could go to a team that maybe he could make a Super Bowl contender, be the quarterback of America's team.
That'd be pretty cool if that happened. Let's see. I wanted to ask you, like, is there any other big name that could potentially be traded or be on a new team that like is not really getting talked about right now? Is there anyone that like really comes to mind?
I've been so tied up with the Texans. I don't know about the rest of the league, but I'm pretty sure there are going to be some big trades. Number one, the salary cap's a lot lower than it has been because of COVID-19. So teams, instead of just out and out cutting players, will try to find trade partners. And there are teams out there like the Jets, the Jaguars, the Colts, Patriots that have a lot of money to spend at a time when there ought to be a lot of free agents available. But if you got a guy and you want to cut him because of his contract, I'd call one of those teams with a lot of money and try to make a deal, especially if it's a team like New England that needed a quarterback.
That's true. Yeah, that reminds me of I know the Dolphins they haven't officially released Van Noy because they're looking at the trade market. So,
well, that contract's not going to get traded. They're going to have to release him.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, yeah, I think it's way too big. Yeah.
Yeah. Quick question. Can continuing on Kyle Van Noy, do you know what team would benefit the most with Kyle Van
I
Noy?
have no idea. I didn't keep up with Van Noy after they signed him last year. I was told that he got his sacks against two bad teams. That's a big contract. So he's going to have to make, and I don't blame him for being mad. He's going to, right when he thinks that he's taken care of for a while, he's going to be a free agent and he's not going to make nearly as much money.
Jerry, you have any other question? Yeah,
Yeah, I have a quick question.
go ahead.
So in the scenario that Houston does trade Deshaun Watson, and they end up with the second or third pick, I know you talked about Wilson and Fields, but which one would you prefer? Or
Zach Wilson, because he got better every year. Justin Fields didn't. Now, that may have been last season because the Big Ten wasn't going to play. Then they were, then they weren't, then they did. They didn't play as many games. And Wilson just kept getting better and better. And I don't know, truthfully, all I know is what I've seen on TV. But the draft experts seem to think that Wilson is going to be a higher drafted prospect.
Got you.
yeah, I agree. I'm really high on Zach Wilson. I think he's a tremendous talent, and I think he would be great for Houston.
Got a big arm. He's mobile. Fields is mobile. He's got a good arm. The one you don't know about, and I wouldn't want to take a risk on, is Trey Lance of North Dakota State. Played one game this season. It's showcased for the scouts. Had the worst game of his career. So you're having to worry about 2019 and then a year of inactivity, basically. So I would, if I was going to draft him, I would make sure I had a veteran start like Ryan Fitzpatrick, that I could start him. And if I didn't have to play Lance that first season, that would be fine because he's got a whole lot of catching up to do.
I agree with that statement. I think Trey Lance is a tremendous talent, but I think he's too raw and underdeveloped to start day one. Like all
Better
the
have
other,
some patience.
I agree.
Got you. All right, John. Okay, so what would right now if you had to make a prediction? Where does Deshaun Watson like end up?
I would say best case scenario would be the Jets so they could get a quarterback like Zach Wilson and with Miami second. And if Nick Casario likes Tua, maybe it'll be the Dolphins, but it's going to be the one that offers them the best deal.
Got you. But yeah, John, thanks again. That wraps up all the questions we have. Thanks for joining the show today. I really
Rob and
appreciate
Jerry,
it.
my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. Hope you enjoy free agency and the draft, and good luck to you and the Dolphins.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you, John, and I hope to have you on again soon.
Anytime, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.